welcome back to Vinyl Friday, where I go through my records and talk about why I love them. Woohoo! Today is a Rumors Mill episode, which means that we're going to be continuing our track-by-track journey through Fleetwood Mac's 1978 album, Rumours. Today's song was the fourth single released for Rumours, and as all of the singles were top 10 hits, this was their fourth top 10 hit off the album. It is a song that they played at virtually every tour since, and for a change, it's not a song about Lindsey Buckingham or Stevie Nicks. We're gonna have one from Christine McVie today, and the song is called You Make Lovin' Fun. It sounds like this. God, that's a mess. Hang on. This thing needs a clean. Ouch. So let's go back in time a little bit. Who is Christine McVie, you might ask? Well, Christine McVie, née Perfect, was a blues keyboard player in a band called Chicken Shack in the late 1960s. Chicken Shack was on the same label as a little blues outfit named Fleetwood Mac. Christine won the Melody Maker Award in 1969 and 1970 for Best Female Vocalist, but ultimately she had to leave Chicken Shack because she had decided to marry Fleetwood Mac's bassist, John McVie, the Mac part of Fleetwood Mac. She'd played for them, I think, on a couple of tracks as a session musician on their second album. And when founding member Peter Green left the band, they had this sonic void that needed to be filled. Given that they had a relationship with Christine already, they invited her to join the band. And in a way, joining the band that her new husband was in was perhaps the best move of her career, and one of the worst decisions of her personal life. We'll get into why shortly. Actually, no, we'll get into that right now. Fleetwood Mac went through a number of different iterations as guitarists came and went. By the mid-70s, the band had achieved a very moderate level of success. An underwhelming amount of success. Guitarist Bob Welch was the last in a line of guitarists to depart the band. After he put out an album with the band called Bare Trees, which I think is a very good album, worth checking out. They're looking for a new guitarist. Mick Fleetwood happens to hear an album by Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks. He invites Lindsey Buckingham to join the band. Lindsey Buckingham says,
Stevie and I were a package deal.
Lindsey and Stevie join Fleetwood Mac, and they skyrocket to enormous success. By the time they get around to recording this album, Rumours, as we know, everyone in the band is breaking up with each other, including John and Christine McVie. It turns out that for some people, enmeshing your personal and professional lives doesn't work out so well, and this was the case for John and Christine McVie, who were married and having to go on tour with each other constantly.
Being on the road and living together and seeing everybody at their best and their worst, literally their worst.
Also, John McVie had become kind of a mean drunk. Apparently a perfectly lovely guy when he was sober, but not the nicest person when he was inebriated. Apparently he'd enter the studio at about 6 in the morning and begin it with some hard liquor, which professionally I can't endorse. Christine decides, that's it, I've had enough, I don't want to be around this mean drunk anymore.
She saw me at the worst, one time too many, and bless her heart, she said enough.
And she commences an affair with Fleetwood Mac's lighting director, Curry Grant. That's Curry, not Cary Grant. Curry Grant. And she wrote today's song about what, if the song is anything to go by, was a lovely affair. Of course, her husband had to play bass on this track in the recording studio, so she told him, not him, that's Mick Fleetwood. She told him that the song was actually about the dog. But if I were John McVie at the time, I'd like to think that I'd be able to see through that very flimsy lie. It's this last verse that I'm not sure about. Don't break the spell, it would be different and you know it will. You make loving fun and I don't have to tell you you're the only one. Couple of issues I have with this. He wasn't the only one. And also, who says, don't break the spell, it would be different and you know it will, to their dog? Dogs famously are pretty consistent in their affection. Anyway, song is about the lighting tech. I've read an unsubstantiated claim that said lighting tech was fired because the whole thing got really messy, but then he was rehired because he was a really good lighting tech. So if you have any evidence of that, please let me know. I searched everywhere and I couldn't find anything to back it up, but I do hope it's true because that would be hilarious. So let's talk about this song. Lindsey Buckingham was unusually absent when they first started to put the song together, and apparently Christine McVie really enjoyed having a little bit more creative freedom to compose this song and build it up from nothing. You can really hear that because there are 3 layers of keys on this track. You've got the Rhodes, which is playing that riff that sounds kind of like Watermelon Man by Herbie Hancock. Somewhere in the track is a Hammond organ, and then you've got a clavinet, which is being played with a wah pedal. So it sounds sort of like Superstition by Stevie Wonder, which had come out about 4 years prior.
When you believe in things that you don't understand.
It sounds like wah 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 wah. But Christine couldn't work the keyboard and the wah pedal at the same time, so the wah pedal is actually being operated by Lindsey sitting on the floor, manipulating it with his hands. This is what a wah pedal looks like. It's designed to make a sort of predictably wow, 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 wow sound for the instrument that's fed through it. So Lindsey did eventually show up, and when he did, true to form, he made all of these subtle but important contributions to the song. For instance, he really wanted Mick Fleetwood to play extra toms at the chorus, and Mick Fleetwood was like, no, I really don't want to do that, Lindsey. Thanks for the suggestion. So Lindsey, again, true to form, takes up the drumsticks and records a tom track himself. So you can hear that in the chorus here. So that's Lindsey taking matters into his own hands, again, literally. Producer Ken, you know what? I've forgotten how to pronounce his surname again. This happens every month. I get to talking about producer Ken and realize that I've completely forgotten whatever it was that I learned last month about how to pronounce his name. So we're just going to continue calling him Producer Ken. So Producer Ken called Lindsey Buckingham the accent king. He said this: he could accent with guitars, he could accent with toms, and he could accent with Naugahyde chairs, which of course we covered in the secondhand news episode. That's Lindsey Buckingham beating the hell out of a faux leather chair. Despite not wanting to follow Lindsey Buckingham's recommendations, I do have to appreciate Mick Fleetwood's contributions to the song, especially this opener. It's a real gut punch. 1, 2, 3, huh! Perfect. Great way to start a song. He wasn't the most skilled or technically brilliant person in the band, but he really played with heart. He really pounded on those skins. An integral part of Fleetwood Mac. Indubitably. But yeah, it is such a Lindsey move to try and tell everybody else how to play their instruments. He was undeniably a massive asshole, but he was equally undeniably the creative backbone of the band. And that's not to say that the others didn't make valid or worthy contributions, but rather that those accents that producer Ken mentioned are, I think, in large part what makes this such a great album. The songwriting is exceptionally good, but those little accents that Lindsey contributes, that he brings to this album, I think it's those things that make this album especially magical, especially interesting. So let's continue. Let's talk about Lindsey some more. What is he doing on his own instrument when he's not helping everybody else play theirs? Well, he is playing on this track, I believe, a Gibson Les Paul run through a Leslie speaker, which of course is a technique that was pioneered by the Beatles in 1965. Will it, Beatles? Say it with me, kids. Yes, it will! Here are some of my favorite guitar moments on this track. There's this lick in the middle of the chorus. That's lovely, isn't it? His solo on this track. What I love about the solo is that he makes some really lovely melodic choices. I think that sometimes with the more raucous songs, Lindsay can lean maybe a little bit too heavily at times on extracting a really interesting tone from his guitar, maybe relying a little bit too much on his technique, his ability to execute a stunning vibrato, but melodically he doesn't really move around too much. You can hear it on solos like Go Your Own Way. Don't Stop. Or even The Chain. Where he's really relying on the one note and playing that one note in an interesting way. He even does it a little bit in this solo, in this part. So I do enjoy that he does that well, but also around that, he's making some beautiful choices with the notes that he's playing. I saw a clip this week of Annie Clark, St. Vincent, talking about how to structure your songwriting and this rule that she has which applies to the structure of the song, the lyrics, and the logic can be applied to solos as well. She said basically that a song should not end in the same place where it starts. It should go through a journey. It should develop. So with the solo, he introduces an idea in the beginning of the solo. He brings it up to a climax. And then the denouement of the solo delivers us into the last part of the song. I think he does that really well. He also uses space really well on this solo. There's a lot of space right at the beginning. A little phrase, and then nothing. Here. In soloing terms, that's a long time to wait before it picks back up again. But that silence can be just as powerful as the notes on either side of it. It's put to good use here. There's this little percussive break that he does in the last verse, and it is unquestionably one of my favorite parts of the entire album. It doesn't last long, but it is extremely evocative for me. It goes like this. Ah! I love that. I'm gonna listen to it again. I hope you don't mind. He plays in such a specific way. He gives the guitar an accent. And I don't mean like he accents the guitar. I mean like it has its own speaking voice. He pronounces the notes in a very specific way. It's very sharp, very precise, very rhythmic in that point. But approaching that section so rhythmically doesn't necessarily mean that he's sacrificing the melodicism of that phrase. It just speaks to me. I love it. And then the last guitar moment that I'd like to point out is this extended counter melody that he plays through a call and response outro at the end of the song. That is usually exactly where you might find the outro of a song, at the end. Call, response. And the thing I love about that is that it recalls the solo. There's a phrase in the solo that goes, the way that he is bending each of those notes is what he's doing all through the end, through this outro section. He's phrasing them in exactly the same way. The technique that he's using is the same as he used in the solo. He's an interesting guitarist because he's clearly technically skilled, but he's not flashy in the way that Jimmy Page. You're not listening to him and thinking, God, that's impressive. He's not throwing a flurry of notes at your ears, but every single one that he plays is played very deliberately and played very well, very skillfully. For someone with such a massive ego, it's incredible that he's able to take a back seat and let the guitar fill the spaces only where it's needed, never to overwhelm the other players and the other instruments. Amazing. Now I'd like to get to talking about the bass, but before I do so, I think it's important to point out this very special moment in the song. It's the second chord of the chorus, and it sounds like this. That's a beautiful chord. Piano correspondent, can you show us that chord, please? Hello, friends. It's been a while. Good to see you. Very excited today because I'm playing on a freshly tuned piano. But here's what's happening at the chorus of You Make Love and Fun by Fleetwood Mac. These chords are complex, but a lot of what forms that complexity is the way that the vocals are interacting with the instruments. So the instruments might be playing this, but the vocals add to that this note, which creates, and then the bass moves down to this note. And in addition to this extra note, the backing vocals are also adding this one now. So we have this cluster of sound that sounds like this. Absolutely magical. On the first chord of the chorus, Lindsay's playing this riff that sounds kind of like this. And the chord drops down to here. When it comes to the third chord, the bass is down here, but he plays that same riff that he played on the first chord, and it sounds like this time. And that through line makes it sound so much more beautiful. When he plays the riff the second time, the chord changes beneath it, like this. Again, a beautiful chord. So here they all are together. Now, isn't that lovely? Aside from that beautiful mystical chord, there are two other things happening at this point in the song that I think are very special. One of them is the bass part. So the bass is highlighting that chord and making it all the more mysterious and magical. Poor John. Poor hapless John.
It was awful. You know, because you're told by someone that you adore and love, I don't want you in my life.
Playing so beautifully on a song about his wife's lover. Aww. The second point of note in this very special part of the song is the vocals. You couldn't talk about a Fleetwood Mac song without mentioning the vocals. And indeed, I don't think I yet have. I will say, as a disclaimer, despite her numerous Melody Maker awards, Christine McVie's voice is not my favorite in the band. I feel like she always sounds like she's singing from the back of her throat. And I'm curious to know what her speaking voice sounds like and whether she speaks the same way that she sings it.
My then boyfriend at the time, who, for obvious reasons, since he was our lighting director, was not welcome in the studio.
You make love and fun. She's like the female equivalent to Michael McDonald. But I like what he does better. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked. What I will say is that I think her voice is the blender, and I don't think it would work as well. Actually, we can compare it, because we know what Lindsay and Stevie sound like when it's just the two of them. It works, but it's not the Fleetwood Mac magic vocal sound. I think what's happening here is that Christine McVie has a voice that blends really well with Lindsey Buckingham's, and which blends really well with Stevie Nicks, and it brings the three of them together and turns that three-part vocal into something far, far greater than the sum of its parts. Let's have a listen to that vocal. Here's what that sounds like isolated.
I never did believe in the ways of magic, but I'm beginning to wonder why.
See, isn't that beautiful? I think those vocals are what makes that part of the song pop. I don't know about you, but when I listen to that, it feels like, this is gonna sound so corny, but It feels like my heart is expanding. Yeah, that's it. They did do an earlier take of this song with only one harmony, Stevie's, I think, above Christine's. I don't like that as much. With all due respect to Stevie, sounds a little bit shrill. It's not her fault. I just don't think it's a great harmony part. And I think what they ended up with was far superior. A detail I love is that it was a particularly bad day for Lindsay and Stevie and their relationship. Here's what producer Ken had to say. He says they were engaged in, quote, vicious name calling. The tape would start rolling and they'd sing, "You make lovin' fun, just beautiful, two little angels." The tape would stop and they'd be calling each other names again. They didn't miss a beat. And again, I think this is part of the magic of Fleetwood Mac, that they were so dedicated to the music, to the quality of the songwriting and the production and the sound, that despite the fact that their lives were all falling apart around them, they were able to get it together. As soon as Ken hit stop, it was all on again. It was the drinks, it was the coke, it was the fighting, it was the throwing things at each other and throttling people. I will make the complaint that I think the lyrics of the song are a little bit trite, overly simplistic, not terribly interesting. And I will concede that it's extremely difficult to find novel things to say about love in a song, as it's virtually all anyone's been doing for the history of the species. But for all that many commenters of the Rumours Mill series have been leveling the complaint against Stevie that she's actually not that strong a songwriter and that she would be nothing without Lindsey Buckingham, I think her solo career would beg to differ. I think that she was the best lyricist of the band by a country mile. You know, like while Christine is singing, "Sweet, wonderful you, you make me happy with the things you do," Stevie's singing, "It's only me who wants to wrap around your dreams, and have you any dreams you'd like to sell? Dreams of loneliness like a heartbeat drives you mad in the stillness of remembering what you had and what you lost." She's in a different league, man. And so let's go back now to the outro of that song. Everybody is bringing their best selves, as we just described. We've got John McVie playing this very catchy bass part. Mick Fleetwood's pulling out all the stops on the drums. He's thrashing those cymbals. There's the Hammond! I found it! It's right there. Oh, that's delicious. Adds a whole other layer of texture. It's what makes the outro that much bigger. Cool. Guitar solo, which we've covered. We've got that breezy call and response, those vocals. Don't you just love how Mick Fleetwood is pounding that kick drum? Really drives the end of this song. So once again, the thesis of this Rumours Mill episode seems to be that what is so unique and singularly special about this album is the dedication of the musicians to the music. That they were able to put aside their worst impulses, the worst versions of themselves, in order to make room for the best musicians, the best versions of themselves as musicians. To not only write great songs and put them down on tape, but to give those songs everything that they had. Despite what Stevie might say, no one's working harder on their own songs than they might on other people's songs. They're all pulling apart personally, but absolutely pulling in the same direction professionally. Normally at this point in the episode, I would jump into who won the breakup. But the thing is that unlike with Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks, John and Christine McVie ended up really good friends.
And now we are as good friends as ever.
They loved each other deeply. They just couldn't be both married and in a band, and Christine chose the band over the marriage. In preparing for this episode, I read this extremely comprehensive post on the Fleetwood Mac subreddit, which alleged that when Christine McVie died 2 years ago, almost exactly 2 years ago, John was one of the people at her deathbed. Once again, I haven't been able to back this up, so it's an unsubstantiated claim. But it is such a nice unsubstantiated claim that that is how it's going to live in my head forever. Cary Grant might have made loving fun, but the love that Christine and John McVie shared ultimately outlived the fling that Christine McVie had with her lighting director by many decades. Good for them. And that's it from me. If you enjoyed this episode of Vinyl Friday, or you would like to support any of the weird things I do, I will leave a link in the description to my Buy Me a Coffee page where you are most welcome to make a donation. But no pressure, friends. Thank you so much to everybody who has made a donation or signed up as a member. I appreciate you so much. If you're curious about what any of my original music sounds like, I will leave a link in the description for that as well. Otherwise, thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you here next week. Have a great weekend! Fleetwood Mac's 1977 song is about the lighting tech. Lindsay, nope, not Lindsay Buckingham. That'd be really messy. That's basically the only configuration of coupling that didn't happen in the band. There's this little percussive break. There's this little percussive break that he does right at the end. Nope. There's this little... These chords are complex. I've just found a little scrap of paper that I've obviously cut out at some point that says, "We forget that there actually are no rules." Lindsay's riff sounds something like this. Nope. Now we'll play it with the thing. What? Damn it. Sorry, editor Nancy. I really want to get this right just once, all the way through. Here we go. This time. This is gonna be it. Oh my god. I'll leave it. All done. Oh, that's the good bit.